All right, earlier this week, as we know, Treasurer Josh Frydenberg announced that keeping the budget in surplus was not only important in dealing with current demands facing Australia, but also the long-term problems we face as this economic time bomb, he called it, of the ageing population hits the current budget. Now, he says over 65s need to retrain and keep working to curb the new demands that they were placing, Josh Frydenberg's words, not mine, on the health and aged care and pension systems. As usual on a Friday, we want your feedback. So joining me now is Sky News presenter Peter Gleeson. Gleeson, I'm going to get into this issue and I want to come back to you and ask you about banks, but there was a lot of heated debate on Talkback right around the country coming into Sky News after we discussed this about people feeling ripped off. Many want to work till they're 65, they say, but they can't get a job. But two, if they don't want to work to 65 and they've paid taxes all their life, they're pretty resentful of Josh Frydenberg. How did it play out for you?
Well, I think Frydenberg had some good points, I've got to say, Peter. I think, clearly, and I remember you were Chief of Staff to then Prime Minister Tony Abbott when the intergenerational report was released in 2015, and it did warn that, there's some serious and significant challenges coming for the Australian economy in the next 30 or 40 years. As people get older, and of course we're living a lot longer because we're a lot healthier these days and the medicine is a lot more advanced. So there's a clear challenge attached to this. But I'm with, I'm with a lot of these talkback callers. I think that if you want to opt out before 65 after having paid tax for your entire life, that is your prerogative. The other big issue here, Peter, is the way in which Australian employers treat people who are over 65. I mean, we see in the United States there's a very strong culture there that people in their 60s and 70s are at the top of their game. We've seen presidents in the United States elected when they're 70. Whereas here, we see people over 60 as washed up. We have to get employers to change the way in which they look upon people over 60, that that they're prepared to actually hire them because they are, as the United States decrees, at the top of their game. So massive challenge. I think Josh probably overreached a little bit.
Yeah, well, let me just jump into that particular issue of the intergenerational report. I was there in the Abbott government when that report came out, so spent days and days and days on briefings. There is a real problem we have when the aged population or the non-working population outstrips beyond some the number of people working in the workforce, and it goes from currently sort of 4s and 5s, the number of people in the workforce for every retired person, to much, much more problematic than that, right? But the issue there is not just can we get people to work longer that want to work longer, but can we get government to stop spending so much? Can we get government to bring back or rein back spending so that the cost to the budget or call on the budget isn't as great? But more importantly, and I think this is the big number that we saw in the last election, when people go out of their way as they are working to save for their retirement, can they assume that the rules that they operated on when they were working, when they had financial flexibility, will at least stay in place until they retire and until they go through the retirement phase? Because the worst thing that's happened in the last 10 to 15 years is this erosion of confidence people have in their superannuation, that they abide by the rules, they then retire, they can't add to their pot of money anymore. And we saw at the last election, Labor use it as a piggy bank. And under Malcolm Turnbull and Kelly O'Dwyer, they used it as a piggy bank. That's a big issue.
You've hit the nail on the head. Absolutely hit the nail on the head. Because when people put their money into super, they expect that they're going to get all the concessions and all the benefits that accrue from super. And when Keating set it up, it was designed to cushion, to have an impact and ensure that we didn't have this massive burden on the welfare system that we currently have. And I think we should put the superannuation employer contribution up to 12%. I really do. I think that would make a tremendous difference. And of course, Peter, we've been out on the streets in the past few days and we've asked Australians exactly what they think of compelling people to work over 65. Here's what they had to say.
I don't think anybody should be made to do anything. It's actually what they need to do. If you want to work, work. If you don't want to work, don't work.
I think some people are really old at 70, so I don't think that's very fair. And I think that if they want to work after 65, that should be an option.
No, I don't think that they should be made to keep working, but I think most of us are starting to choose to work because we have had full lives and we've enjoyed working, and if there's a way that we could still work, even if it's just a couple of days a week, not full-time really, but maybe a couple of days a week, I think it would be wonderful.
I've just very recently retired, and I think that for me having to wait another 5 years for a pension is a long time to fund myself.
It depends on what they're doing before they were 65. If they're office workers, it probably isn't too hard to ask them to stay working longer, but if they've been working outside, farmers, miners, etc., it's probably a bit harder because those kind of jobs take a toll on the body.
I just think that, you know, you've done your lot, you're 65, and mentally and physically, I think you look forward to a retirement, and I think you've earned it.
The biggest challenge for most people is actually staying in work that long. You know, once you get out of work over 50, it's extremely hard to get a new job, so that's the issue.
Yeah, Peter, I think it's just a wasted resource right now where we've got, you know, so many Australians who are 65 plus who are really yearning to contribute to the workforce, and yet we have this culture in this country where we, in many respects, thinks they're washed up. And I think that's the area that we need to work on. We need to get the government educating employers and saying, or giving them incentivisation to put people on who are over 60.
And I think what came out very clearly in those comments is choice. There will be some people who want to work. There'll be some that want to sort of wind back a bit into part-time work, and there'll be some that don't want to work at all. I mean, I've done office jobs all my life. I expect I'm going to work past 65. My dad was a manual worker. There is no way his body would have been equipped. He died at 60. But there's no way his body would have equipped him to work past 65. So I think, you know, horses for courses, but I think one of the big issues is we focus so much on young people who really don't know a hell of a lot and don't have much experience, and you know, that's good. They are the workers of the future. We've certainly got to put effort in there. But we dismiss the experience and the knowledge of older workers just because, you know, we see the age on a CV or we see the face when they come in the door. And I wonder how many older Australians, Gleeson, if they put in their CV without a picture, without any detail about age, would get the interview and would get the job. They'd be great. And they're usually, I have to say, pretty bloody reliable in terms of workers.
And they're keen to work, Peter. That's the thing. They understand the reliability factor. And I've got to say, and look, please, this is very much a generalisation, but, you know, the younger generation, I don't think, tend to be as reliable these days when it comes to, you know, those bread and butter things like being on time and making sure that the job's done properly. And I mean, that obviously comes with experience. But if you've got a really keen, experienced person who's 65, who's been working all their life, and you're right, Peter, the big thing here is choice. If you don't want to work and you're past 65 and you want to go and play golf, that's fine. But if you want to work and contribute, I think Australian employers have to acknowledge that they're there and that they should be taking them on board.
Wow, that's a lot of Friday feedback, common sense. Peter Gleeson, thanks for your time.